Okay, okay. So this is one of my dreams. This would be amazing if we could create preventative habitats in cities and in areas because we're animals. We forget that we're animals. In fact, Charles Darwin had a lot of quite a hard time telling people that we were related to monkeys. It was a big issue, but I think because we've been distanced, we do forget that. And why, if we move on to the next slide, and without a doubt, if you look in 1990, so this is the number of papers with a search term gardening and mental health. And you can see, from 1990 to 663, there are 8,540 papers now that reference. Many of those are actually systematic reviews, and there's a couple of RCTs, research clinical trials, that have proved this as well. So I think the evidence is there. I think it's blatantly obvious that we should do it. This stuff is good for you. It's correlated, and there are some RCTs. Some would argue you'd need more. I would say let's just get on with it because we know that there is a benefit to people's well-being. Okay, next one. And there is a challenge because the Wandersley and Schluster in 1998 talked of this term about plant blindness. Many people can't see plants, so as you drive, as I'm driving along, and my wife was driving along in the car, and I said, "What do you see when you look at the side of the road?" And she said, "I see green blobs." And I said, "Well, I see different plant names, different plant uses, different habitats, different things. I see all the uses of all these different plants. I see wild garlic that I can fry up with egg. I see, so I think we've become more and more disconnected with nature." So next slide. And 3/4 of UK children spend less time outdoors than prison inmates. So I mean, that is it's shocking. We are becoming more and more distanced from nature. And there is a term by Love, which is a book, another great book called Last Child in the Woods, and it talks about nature deficit disorder, which is that if us as animals don't get our habitat right, then we start to have issues. And this links to our autonomic nervous system, because when you're in a city, the way that your body physiologically reacts to that, as opposed to being in the countryside or with nature around you, is very different. You're in a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn kind of mode, depending on which environment that you put yourself in. If you're in a safe environment, then you're likely to be balanced. Okay, so if you move on to the next one. Cousin from the north, two for joy, magpies, but 30% of children can't identify a magpie, 90% recognise a Dalek. So there we go. And wildflower names as well, they're being removed from the English, the dictionary. So again, we're distancing ourselves away from that. So next slide. And we do need to safeguard ourselves from addiction. How many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds do we put into safeguarding the panda or the orangutan, which is really important. We must protect our habitats. How many hundreds of thousands and millions of pounds are we doing destroying our habitats in cities by greying them up, by removing green stuff, and not putting what we want? Because animals are very habitat dependent. Is it any wonder that we are suffering in the way we are with a number of these things? Now, I'm not saying that gardening, horticulture is the silver bullet. There are many other deep levels and issues around all this, but we should give more consideration to our habitat, to what surrounds us, being it indoor, being a balcony, and be it here. So so the next slide is what I talked about in relation to the autonomic nervous system. Wilson talked about the biophilia hypothesis. Eric Fromm before that was a psychologist that talked about this. Biophilia means the love of life. And they related that to the fear of life. So I'm not particularly great with spiders and getting rid of spiders, and that's a fear. So what Wilson and Kellett said, well, if you've got a fear of nature, snakes and stuff, evolutionary, so that you don't get bitten or you don't deal with it, then surely there must be a love of nature, the flip side of that, where you've got danger and no danger. So if you look at this in relation to the autonomic nervous system, so in a city, I know where I'd rather live on those two sides, but in a city, okay, there is water, there is vegetation, and you have got food and you have got shelter, but what you haven't got is these nature things. So you get this element of cortisol efforts. Now, we've just recently done a piece of research that links to this, which is in Salford, in Salford, in a street, quite deprived street, and we had a control. We put two tiny little planters and a single tree in the street. What we did is we measured cortisol levels, which is in saliva in the mouth, that is a direct measure of stress. And then we also measured something called perceived stress scale. What we found, and this will be published soon, what we found was that the perceived stress scale of the individuals that had the gardens compared to the control had dropped by 6%, which was equivalent to about 8 weeks of mindfulness sessions by the NHS. And then the other thing that we found was that the cortisol curves, at the beginning, 23% of the individuals had a normal curve, so they weren't stressed. At the end of the intervention and putting those plants there, 56% were. So you can see that actually even a small amount, even a few pot plants in your house, can make a difference. And we're going to do more work around